Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Princeton, where in our open and welcoming community we live our message of hope, love, justice, and joy. We extend a special welcome to our visitors this morning. We're really happy that you've joined us, and we'd love to get to know you after the service. If you haven't already stopped by the newcomer table in Robinson Lounge, please do so that we can get you any information that you'd like about our congregation and put you on our email list. Happenings in the back of your order of service has announcements about many things that are happening this week and this month, including that after worship today, our Women's Alliance is hosting a brunch. You can make friends and enjoy a delicious meal right there in Founders Room after the service. And all of our donations will go to support groups that serve women and children through the Women's Alliance grant process. All are welcome. Also, this Saturday at 6 p.m. is Fellowship Night. Enjoy games and pizza with friends new and old here at UU Princeton. All ages and game playing ability are welcome. You'll see that we need people to sign up for that so that we have enough pizza. So please go to the website and do that. And then on the following Friday, April 20th, Rainbow Ministry will be showing Some Like It Hot in Foz Theater at 7 p.m. All are welcome. And you'll see that if you go to that, they'll feed you popcorn. Lastly, our Zen meditation group meets next Sunday after worship at 11:45 in Foz Theater. All are welcome for that practice and discussion. And now we have an annual giving campaign update from one of our wonderful co-chairs this year, Elizabeth Silverman.
Thanks, Bill. And thanks all of you. It's been almost a month since we started the annual campaign. And the first point we'd like to do is Cindy couldn't be here today, but we want to thank the 119 of you who have already submitted your pledges. That is wonderful, a wonderful response. Submitting them without our having to remind you makes our job infinitely easier. As you may remember, our pledge drive goal this year was $600,000. It's the same as last year. Nevertheless, and we didn't think to spell this out in our communications to you, that didn't mean that we didn't need pledge increases. Unfortunately, every year there are members who must decrease their pledges or have to stop pledging entirely. Some have financial setbacks, some move away, and some, we are especially sad to say, die. Fortunately, despite having thus far 17 former pledgers who had to decrease or eliminate their pledges, another 19 of you have come through with increased pledges. We can't thank you enough for that. As of Friday, we had raised $466,000 of our $600,000 goal. If, and this is a really big if the 66 pledgers from the current year who have not yet submitted their pledges pledge exactly the same amount this coming year, we will end up just a few $1,000s short of our goal. Cindy and I will be reaching out again to all of these congregants within the next week. So many, many thanks to those of you who have already pledged, with special thanks to those of you who have increased their pledges. If you have not yet pledged, please do so as soon as you can to relieve Cindy and me of having to nag you. There are pledge cards right outside the door if you'd like to do it today. So we're hoping that we can come back to you in just a few weeks and announce goal met, pledge drive over. Stay tuned.
And now with mind and heart, with reverence and joy, let us be together for this time of peace. Joining in spirit those of today and yesterday who gather as well for reminders of the good, glimmers of hope, and to remember the calling and presence of love. Come, let us worship together.
Science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind. Albert Einstein. Good morning. As many of you know, I am a historian, not a scientist, so you won't get any scientific insights from me. However, I have been an avid science fiction fan from a very young age. That is probably my grandfather's fault. He was an aerospace engineer who worked on the Saturn V rocket, among many other projects. He loved Star Trek, The Next Generation, of course, because he had good taste, and had read, at least it seemed to me as a child, pretty much everything. When I was 8 or 9, he gave me 2 books from his impressive library. They were anthologies of short stories from the so-called golden age of science fiction. He had grown up reading them in the 20s and 30s, and because of him, I grew up reading them in the 90s and 2000s. These stories were some of the first places I read about scientific concepts like evolution, space travel, alternate universes. The science part of the stories wasn't always quite up to date. Today, they are more than 100 years old, but I have been reading science fiction ever since. One popular series I have not yet read is The Three-Body Problem by Liu Cixin. So when Netflix came out with an adaptation of the series a couple weeks ago, I knew I had to watch. I don't want to give any spoilers, so I am going to try to describe the concept of the show in the broadest strokes I can. And bear in mind, I have been told that the Netflix adaptation changes some key parts of the novels. So when the show starts, scientific experiments around the world have started putting up impossible results. The Large Hadron Collider is on the fritz. The scientific community is in an uproar. Our nearby Princeton Plasma Physics Lab doesn't appear in the show, but we can imagine the folks over there are freaking out along with everybody else. Meanwhile, prominent physicists are suffering hallucinations, shutting down their labs, or in the worst cases, showing up dead under mysterious circumstances. Our heroes are 5 physicists, old friends from grad school, faced with the enormous task of unraveling these mysteries before it's too late. And that is all I will say about the plot. My husband, Charles, and I both really enjoyed the show. He liked it because, as he says, it operates under the assumption that physicists are the smartest, bravest, most important people in the universe. My husband is a physicist. I liked it because as we get further into the story, we learn that physics isn't really the point. Sorry, Charles. Our heroes start out thinking that they need to solve a scientific problem. Over time, they realize that it's actually a human or moral problem, saving lives and having compassion for the other. I'm reminded of another Einstein quote. A human being is part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings as something separate from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. In the end, nothing in our lives is strictly academic. Every scientific field, every field across the scholarly spectrum, every form of business or industry, everything we do, essentially, affects other human beings. And because that's true, empathy and compassion always need to be a part of the equation. Thank you.
I want to begin with words of gratitude to John Best, a member of our congregation since November 12th, 1967, who along with his wife Estelle joined on the same day, and who have ever since blessed our community with friendship, service, warmth, and a good bit of humor. They're delightful, and it's a joy to know them, and I know that many of us here share in that gratitude. John is a graduate of MIT and has a scientific bent to him. And as we were chatting one day, he mentioned a particular insight from the president of MIT that he thought might be a good fodder for a sermon. He said it had to do with curiosity driving good science, resulting not only in advances in thought and technology, but also advances in compassion and empathy. I replied that it would be good fodder for a sermon, but it'd be better fodder for a sermon from me and some insights from him about what the words meant to him. We had planned on each speaking for a little while around these themes, but in the intervening time, we needed to change that plan a bit. And so John sent thoughts into me to weave into the sermon. In some ways, it's a sermon in two voices with only one being spoken right now. I'm going to do my best to incorporate his insights, even though John can speak about matters of science and technology the way I can about a good taco, fluidly, with calm assurance and clear expertise. I, on the other hand, am a bit clunky when it comes to science. I like learning about it, but only studied what I needed to at any given moment of schooling. I read it occasionally for interest and joy, but without much discipline. And I have clear biases, like when August 24th, 2006 happened. You probably already know what I'm talking about, the day etched into the collective memory of our global consciousness, one of those dates that is forever marked with a before and after sense of gravity. The world, nay, the universe, changed on that day. Any trivia or science buffs know what happened August 24th, 2006? No looking at your phones? Anyone? Well, at least two things happened. Most importantly, that's my wife's birthday, so we celebrated that. But on that particular August 24th, 2006, Pluto was demoted to dwarf planet, meaning it was no longer one of the 9 planets in our solar system. All that memorization throughout my schooling was for naught, as we jettisoned that adorable little chunk of nitrogen ice with moons and mountains and plains to be forever mentioned only among the also-rans of the Kuiper Belt. I reacted with defiance. I had learned that there were 9 planets and there will always be 9 planets for me. I reacted with offense. By then, I was well-versed in a lesser-known rap ska song titled "Pluto is a Planet" that was written in the 90s, but foresaw this development. The artists, a now disbanded group called Two Skinny Jays, who had a strong college bar following back in the day, used Pluto's coming eviction to comment on immigration and deportation in America. It was a bit of a stretch, but they were prophets for seeing it that way. And I reacted with suspicion. Who gains from Pluto being demoted? Is it Neptune? Do they want to be the last planet, the final one? Every prophet wants to be the last prophet, but no prophet ever is. Is Neptune making a power play to be the last one? I would later on read a book titled "How I Killed Pluto and Why It Had It Coming" by Michael Brown, who is a professor of planetary astronomy, a legit expert, and had a lot to do with this whole decision. It's a good book, funny, sweet in places, and written for the scientific layman like me. As the title indicates, the subject is approached with some jest, but also respectful of the demands of science, evidence, observation, experimentation, and consistency, the scientific method. My conviction that Pluto was a planet no longer satisfied any of those criteria. Scientists had learned more and changed theirs and our understanding as a result. And alas, I understood the case being made. I still wish it had not been made, but I got it and get it. Pluto is a dwarf planet. John's thoughts about this topic affirm the scientific method that led to Pluto's reclassification, but the sentiment that he shared was a quotation from Sally Kornbluth, president of MIT, the one I mentioned earlier. In 2023, an article quoted her saying, "Curiosity is the passion to understand how things work and why, and how they can work better. Curiosity is also the one and only path to understanding one another, to empathy and appreciation and mutual respect. In effect, curiosity is the indispensable first step in both collaboration and community." John shared that these words signaled perhaps a softening of scientific rhetoric. I would add that the same quality can signal a softening of religious rhetoric, which can be certainly as strident and absolute as the language in any field. An excessive sense of certainty makes no room for discoveries, no greater collaboration that can lead not only to new knowledge, but also build bridges between people. Absolutism seeks to reject rather than to consider and shrinks not only our potential for new discovery, but also for new community. What's needed is a practice, a discipline for approaching the unknown that can lead us toward other knowledge and other people with open minds, open hearts, and open hands. That practice can be curiosity, the mindset and heart set of seeking to learn and understand new information and people rather than guard and defend against the very changes they bring. Curiosity as a practice can be as simple as pausing before responding to something that evokes a reaction within us. It can be taking stock in that pause of where we are emotionally, naming it, and then shifting our perspective away from reactivity and toward more open consideration. Curiosity can be about cultivating ambiguity instead of absolute certainty, which is a way to make space for differences in thought, options, and perspectives. Curiosity can be reading a book written by the other side of an argument to understand in their words what they are saying, and then it can be articulating that perspective in terms they wouldn't find objectionable, just to make sure it's really understood. That doesn't create agreement, but it does create understanding, mutual understanding if someone with whom we disagree does the same thing. And that builds diverse relationship and community, all coming from a practice of open curiosity rather than absolute certainty about who someone else is or what they're saying. Curiosity opens doors to new knowledge, new relationships, new communities, and with those, a better future. And curiosity as a practice is also one that we can encourage in others. We can support our friend who suddenly takes up painting, or a partner who takes up a new language, or a coworker who is curious about writing. We can encourage our kids to be curious and try new things, not towards some college admission or lifelong end or market demand, but just for the enjoyment of curiosity, of creating stuff and messing them up and building things and breaking them. We can do that with them. Let them see us as parents, as caretakers, as adults in their congregation, create and make messes, build things that break, try new things and learn in the process together. Science is built by getting some things right and many things wrong. And in many ways, what's wrong becomes more instructive. And even when something is gotten right, that just leads to the next thing that will be wrong. Curiosity is what fuels this process of discovery, of resilience, of an ever-expanding understanding of how things work and of how we can work together as people. Religion and science have not always worked well together in this pursuit. Each has often been too assured of the other's ignorance or ulterior motives. John reminded me that liberal religion, and for some time now mainstream religion, has explained this tension by articulating that science deals with evidence and religion deals with meaning, or science is the how and religion is the why. Or looking ahead, science tries to forecast what is likely to happen. Religious tries to shape that through values, rituals, traditions, and faith. And it's true that the two are sometimes antagonistic and historically have been antagonistic at very deadly levels. But it's also likely true that this antagonism is increasingly at the edges of both fields, at least in this country. I don't find these days as much antagonism towards science or religion from the other side coming from the middle of either field. We integrate the two here. Most UU congregations do as well. Most mainstream houses of faith have a general respect for science, even if it's understandably not at the center of their gospel. New knowledge is woven into ancient teachings in ways that provide meaning and guidance for these days. And while there are conservative movements that make opposition of science their central proclamation, most houses of worship really don't. Most integrate the two on some level, but really focus on other things like tradition, rituals, values, faith. And science is not my field, but I imagine that most scientists, when they get up and go to work and figure things out and fail and succeed, aren't doing so to try and stick it to religion or faith. It's hopefully what they want to do, what they're interested in, what brings them meaning and purpose and joy. It's how they add to the collective good. And I do know that many then turn around on whatever their faith's Sabbath day is and go to worship and fellowship, a potluck, maybe a program. The two really work well together in practice in many religious houses and many scientific lives. The concern I have is that the divide is less science and religion and more science and broader culture. The erosion of trust in the scientific pursuit and expertise in circles much larger than that of just religion must be countered if we are to continue advancing as a country and even civilization. True, religious leaders are often among the most prominent advancers of this distrust, but it's also bigger. It's political, it's civil, and it has to do with the general distrust of all authorities and institutions in the culture. Religion faces this same dynamic, and as it has played out, we've seen loneliness soar, depression rise, and a sense of the common good crumble. People are less connected to one another, to a tradition, and to meaning, and life generally has become more anxious, less satisfying, and more difficult. In the world of science, people trust less of that which has provided safer, easier, and healthy ways of living for virtually everyone on Earth. The journey that has advanced within the human body, a collective confidence and optimism, is increasingly discredited with prejudice, leaving little more than nihilism. And to trust less of what has progressed us is to hamstring progress in the future, and that hurts those to come. We live more comfortable lives today because those before us didn't do that. They went to the moon and cured polio and figured out the climate and even ethically killed Pluto. And thus, our job is to fuel the advancements of science and the endurance of communities of faith for those to come. For the world is much, much better with both vibrant and healthy. The struggle used to be between science and religion. In some places, it still absolutely is. But the broader, more concerning one is between both, and forces of hostility and disrepute. These are projected on both, leaving us anchorless and lonely without faith, and suspicious and paranoid without progress. Science and religion have long, in many circles and lives, complemented each other. In today's America, they need to strengthen and support each other, for in that vision, we can find meaning and beauty. I took an astronomy class in college. It met in the planetarium on campus, and maybe once a week or so at the end of the lecture, the professor would turn out the lights and turn on the stars, as he called it. And he would put on that night's sky for us to look for. Did we lose it? Let's give it just a second. It'll pick back up. Thank you, Judy V. There we go. Thank you, Judy V, everyone. We would lean back in our seats as he pointed out this planet and that star. I was never good at finding what he pointed us toward later on, but I love those moments. We all did. And occasionally he wouldn't say anything at all when he turned on the stars. He would play music instead. Kermit the Frog's Rainbow Connection was a favorite. 100 or so sleepy college students looking at the stars while Kermit sang to us was just spectacular. And a few times he played Galileo by the Indigo Girls, my favorite group. In it, they sing of the 16th century astronomer who changed the way we understand the universe, the one who was tried for heresy by the church and lived under house arrest for the final years of his life before being found not guilty after all by the church in the 1990s. And to me, they sing of his legacy and how his life gifted and advanced us. They sing of how each generation has that choice to gift and advance or to burden and hinder, and how often we are faced with and leave behind both. They sing, I offer thanks to those before me. That's all I've got to say, because maybe you squandered big bucks in your lifetime. Now I have to pay. But then again, it feels like some sort of inspiration to let the next life off the hook. Or she'll say, look at what I had to overcome from my last life. I think I'll write a book. Science and religion are partners in gifting those to come with better lives, more knowledge, more progress, more meaning, more connection. Both speak in languages sacred and secular. Both are best when curious and compassionate and community-minded, and neither need spend much, if any time, fussing at the other. For our future is one that we can all bless with questions and answers and more questions, and people growing together and growing alone in our separate and shared callings. We can learn together and from one another and emerge from all of this, not at odds with each other, but in greater and greater states of unity and service. May it be so. And thanks again to John Best for the idea and the collaboration and the friendship. Amen. At the end of our hour, we extinguish our chalice, knowing that its light carries us until we gather again. Go forth grateful for the moments before you, the breath within you, the people among you, and the Spirit guiding you toward lives of love and kindness. And go forth knowing that you are held always and always with everyone else by that great love of no beginning and never ending. Go in peace, and amen.